This is question number 1 of homework 10 for chapter 9 and a portion of chapter 16. If the inverse demand function is P equals 240 minus 3Q, what is the marginal revenue function? Draw the demand and marginal revenue curves. At what quantities do the demand and marginal revenue lines hit the quantity axis? So the first part is to figure out the marginal revenue function. In the text and in my PowerPoint lecture slides, it mentions that for the monopoly, if the inverse demand function is a linear function, then the marginal revenue is also a linear function and with the same intercept with regard to the vertical axis. Here it's the price or marginal revenue, but the slope will double. So here the slope will be 3, so the marginal revenue curve will have a slope of 3 times 2, which is 6. So that's mentioned in the textbook as well as my PowerPoint slides. For example, if I pull out my PowerPoint slides, you can find on page 5. Here actually I used a red font just to stress this point. The MR, which stands for marginal revenue curve, is a straight line. Here this is specific to MR curve for linear demand, and that's the case here. It's a straight line that starts at the same point on the vertical, which means it's the price axis, as the demand curve, but has twice, to be more precise, this should be as the inverse demand curve, but has twice the slope. So if you go to the figure 9.2, where's the figure 9.2? Yeah, okay. So I guess this mentions the figure in the book, which is not shown on my slides. Basically, that's what I was referring to. So let's go back to the question. Now this will become a very straightforward question. So it's going to be 240, same intercept, vertical intercept, but now the slope will double, so minus 6Q. That should be my marginal revenue function. So check my answer. Good job. Now we need to draw both the inverse demand curve and marginal revenue curve, and also asks us what quantities do the demand and the marginal revenue lines hit the quantity axis. So the quantity axis is the horizontal axis here. So that's when either the price or marginal revenue equals 0. So when the price equals 0, then Q has to be 240 divided by 3, that's 80. So when Q equals 80, then the price equals 0. That's when the quantities hit the demand curve, the inverse demand curve hit the quantity axis. And similarly, when Q equals 240 divided by 6, that's 40, the marginal revenue equals 0. So one is 40 and another one is 80. And what about the vertical axis? That's when the quantity equals 0. So when the quantity equals 0, then price equals 240. And same is for the marginal revenue. When quantity equals 0, then marginal revenue equals 240. So both straight lines start from the same vertical intercept. So now let's use the line drawing tool. 240 for both, and for the marginal for the price curve, as we just mentioned, the quantity intercept is 80, so then Here should be 80, and here this is the demand curve. And for the marginal revenue curve, starting from the same vertical intercept, but now the quantity is 40 when the marginal revenue equals 0. So that's this point here. So this is marginal revenue. Now let me save my answer and let's check our answer. Good job. So the final part, the demand curve intersects the horizontal quantity axis at, we already did a calculation, that should be 80, right? The demand curve. And now the marginal revenue curve is 40. So now let's check our answer again. Nice work. Alright, so that's it for this question.